If this script was any sharper, I would have hurt myself. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Deans. We like to talk about film and books here. So if you like those two things, welcome. Let's hang out, let's be buds. Today I want to talk about film. So I made a video a few weeks ago on my channel, which was my top 10 films that I saw in 2024, specifically my favorite films that were released in 2024. Now, as much fun as I had making that video, when I was done, I was kind of bummed because I realized that I didn't get to talk about so many other amazing movies that I saw that year. Not necessarily 2024 releases, but just films that I'd never seen for the first time. Films from as early as the 1930s, black and white films, seminal big like Hollywood blockbusters that I've just like slept on all these years. I saw a lot of films from directors that I'd never seen before. A lot of hidden gems. I felt like 2024 was a very exploratory year for me. I've been a film girly since day dot, since I came out of the womb, but I felt like last year I made more of a conscious effort to broaden my palette when it came to film, to be more exploratory. So today what I want to do is I want to curate a list for you of 25 incredible films that you can watch in 2025. I know we're all busy. I know we often spend so much time scrolling, trying to figure out what to watch on all our streaming services. So I wanted to make it easy. I wanted to cherry pick and curate 25 films that I think are worth your time in this new year. I've got something for everyone on this list. I've got films from all sorts of genres, all sorts of decades. I've got black and white films on here. I've got some great documentaries. I've got some stone cold 70s seminal blockbusters. I've got some psychedelic trips. I've got some offbeat contemporary rom-coms. I've got some horny vampire films. I've got some cannibal romance. Okay, I feel like you're either locked in after that or you've left the chat. So yeah, something for everyone. Enough foreplay. Let's just get into it.
Ready? Okay.
Okay, the first film I want to talk about is a brilliant documentary called Israelism. Now, this is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. It's doing a number of things. Now, Israelism is made by a team of American Jewish documentarians. And one of the things that they seek to do in this film is to simultaneously tackle the erasure and the vilification of Palestinians in Zionist culture and education. This documentary also aims to recenter Judaism, and it speaks to the dangers that Israel creates when it conflates Judaism and Zionism. It's also providing an insight into the huge movement of American Jews that have dedicated their lives to unlearning everything that they were taught at a young age and dedicating their lives to fight for Palestinian rights and liberation. Some of the most incredible people that are doing the most incredible work, the most incredible activism are American Jews. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. All right, the next film I want to talk about, it's got a title that you guys will think I made up. It doesn't sound real. It doesn't sound like a real movie. If anything, it sounds like a tagline, but I promise you it is the name of the film. The film is called Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. Let's say that again. Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. Let's say it one more time. Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. Okay, this movie is wonderful. This is a really charming French-Canadian film about a young female ethical vampire who doesn't want to eat humans. It's very quirky, it's very indie, it's very offbeat. It's got this really sweet romance at the center, and it's a real breath of fresh air in the vampire genre. I've never seen anything else like it. So if you're a fan of vampire movies, but you're kind of sick of the same old tropes, the same types of worlds, the same types of characters, I would strongly recommend giving Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person a go. Yes? Can I help you? This is Percy, by the way. She's a little nightmare. Next up, Punch Drunk Love. This is by far my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film. It is absolutely adorkable. Stars Adam Sandler. He's doing his, trademark comedy, but it's also quite a dramatic role. It's quite a romantic role, and he's just lovely. He's lovely in this role. So Punch Drunk Love is about a depressed, lonely businessman named Barry, who's a little bit dumb. He's full of anxieties, as we all are. He is a little bit unlucky in love, and he sort of He's also very nice and sweet, and that sort of naivety gets him embroiled in a phone sex line scandal. Scam, where people are trying to come after him for his money. Meanwhile, he's like falling in love with his sister's best friend. It's got some beautiful, quiet, sincere Adam Sandler moments that are very appreciated. And yeah, I loved it. It's got buckets of visual storytelling to interpret forever. And I look forward to rewatching it. Next up is another documentary called I Am Not Your Negro by Raoul Peck, the filmmaker Raoul Peck. Raoul Peck has taken writings from an unfinished James Baldwin book and sort of uses them as narration, as the framework for this really harrowing documentary about America, specifically the African American experience in America. It's a reflection on what it means to be African American in the United States. It chronicles America's relationship with racism, and it's a searing visual essay that is super unsettling, but like Israelism, it's a crucial watch. Next up, we have Speak No Evil, the original, the OG Danish film, not the James McAvoy version. I have not seen that one, but I've heard it's terrible. Why do Americans do this? Anyway, Speak No Evil is one of those horror films that is so scary that it's even scary when you watch it in broad daylight. This is a Danish film from 2022. And if you're one of those people who is a people pleaser and you're super polite and you have like a fear of upsetting people in like a social context, you will feel personally attacked by this movie. This is a cautionary tale about the dangers of being too polite, of being a people pleaser, of consenting to something and going along with something even when your gut is screaming at you to run the other way. It's a brilliant film that critiques like the pressure that society puts on us to be polite, to avoid conflict. So this film follows a Danish family who are on holiday and they meet this other family and they get along pretty well, you know. And once they're back home, they receive an invitation from that family to come and visit them for a weekend. And they don't really want to go, but they accept. Why? Because they're polite. So they go along and things start happening, things that are really weird and really odd and really confronting. But because they are people pleasers, they just keep going along with it. And those decisions lead them down a devastating path. It's not a film that is going to make you feel good. It's pretty gnarly. So make sure you know that going in. Speaking of gnarly, nihilistic films, let's just keep going with that. The next film I want to talk about is I Saw the Devil, which is a delightful film about a man who begins a cat and mouse chase with the serial killer who murdered his fiancée. And it's got a gut punch final sequence that, you know, does what it says on the carton. It punches you in the gut. You know, and it has some really important things to say about revenge and the nature of revenge and the cost and consequence of revenge and what revenge can actually do to a person. I'll just say that the serial killer isn't the only monster in this film.
Really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Make sure you've got like a fun cartoon lined up for like straight after you finish watching this movie, because this movie will make you want to crawl in the fetal position and just lie in bed for days. It's one of those films. All right, it's time to move on to something light. I watched a lot of films from big time Hollywood directors that I'd never watched before. And one of those directors that I absolutely fell in love with was Billy Wilder. He made films like Sunset Boulevard and Double Indemnity and Some Like It Hot. But my favorite of the films that I watched of his last year, and the one I want to talk about today, is The Apartment. This is just one of the loveliest rom-coms ever. It's from the 1960s. It's in black and white. And it's just got one of the tightest rom-com scripts that I've ever come across. Just when you thought you were witty, you had good banter, you were pithy, you watch a Billy Wilder film and you actually realize how beige you are. This man is so quippy, so witty, so funny. So The Apartment has a great premise. It's about a mild-mannered insurance man named Bud Baxter, played by the wonderful Jack Lemmon, who has featured a lot in Billy Wilder's films. And Bud Baxter is desperate to climb the corporate ladder, and he's found a way to curry favor with his bosses by lending his apartment to them when they want to basically cheat on their wives and sleep with their mistresses. The film takes a turn when he discovers one of the women in his bed at his apartment when he comes home, and he falls in love with her, and he's sort of put in the middle of things, and he has to reckon his personal ambition with his ethics. It's just a real good time. It's a real sweet time. If you're feeling a little bit down, if you need a pick-me-up, The Apartment is just a really, really lovely, wholesome film. One of my favorite lines in the film is Shirley MacLaine's character is like the lift operator, because they had lift operators back in those days. And they're all at their company's Christmas party, and she's not really taking part in the party. She's still operating the lifts. And Jack Lemmon's character, Bud Baxter, goes up to her and he's like, "Oh, can I get you a drink?" And she's like, "No, I'm driving." Because she's driving the lift. Yeah. Just like really witty lines like that. You don't often get witty dialogue like that anymore in cinema. The old timers, they knew how to do it. All right, the next film is a movie that I've just been sleeping on forever. It's a seminal 70s blockbuster. It's a Francis Ford Coppola film. It's not The Godfather. It's not The Godfather Part 2. It is Apocalypse Now. I've seen a lot of movies about war and a lot of anti-war films, a lot of movies about the horrors of war, the repercussions of war, what war can do to individuals, societies, cultures, countries, nations. But this is by far the best. So this film takes place during the Vietnam War, and it is about a man named Captain Benjamin Willard. And he is sent on an assignment by the American military to track down and terminate an American colonel, Colonel Kurtz, who has gone rogue in the jungle, who has acquired his own guerrilla army and has gone against what the American military wants him to do. They can't control Colonel Kurtz anymore, so they want him to be exterminated. This film examines the dehumanizing effects of war, and it exposes the hypocrisy that is at the heart of the West. One of the things I love about Francis Ford Coppola is how operatic his films are, and how his use of practical effects, even from 50 years ago, they don't age. Like, they still look really good. They look a lot better than a lot of CGI you see these days. And there's another Francis Ford Coppola film that I will talk about later that just has like practical effects that have really held up. Are we having fun? I'm having so much fun. I love talking about film. The next movie I want to talk about is Prey. This movie came out of nowhere and it blew my bed socks off. Like, this was an awesome film. This is an alien slasher film from 2022 directed by Dan Trachtenberg. But what makes this film so unique in the alien sci-fi genre is that it's filmed in a period setting. So I believe this film is part of like the Predator universe, but you don't need to watch those films going in. I've never seen any of those films, and I really, really enjoyed this, and I didn't need any like backstory to understand it. It's really accessible. They hunt to live. It lives to hunt. When danger threatens her camp, the fierce and highly skilled Comanche warrior Naru sets out to protect her people. But the prey she stalks turns out to be a highly evolved alien predator with a technically advanced arsenal. Another really cool thing about this movie is that the arsenal of weapons that the alien has at his disposal are, I've never seen these weapons before. They are so cool. So cool. And the film has like this video game feel to it. So you feel like you're in a video game. And usually that might sound like a pejorative because video game adaptations and video game style movies are like universally considered terrible. But this is not that at all. It's not adapted from a game. It just has like, I don't know, it just has like a video game vibe to it. Like you feel really immersed in the action. It's really great. I just had such a good time. I wasn't expecting this movie to be anything. I went in with like no expectations and it was so fun. The next film is a movie that I have been sleeping on for so long. Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love. Now, this movie is the film equivalent of edging. Like you will literally be turned on the entire time. In the Mood for Love is a very romantic story about cosplay. It's about two neighbors who realize that their partners are cheating on them with each other. And they don't want to stoop to that level. So they spend the entire movie role-playing the idea of what it would be like to have an affair without actually having an affair. You think you know yearning You think you know longing. You think you know desire. And then you watch In the Mood for Love. Ugh, so good. All right, back to rom-coms. One of the funniest, wittiest, pithiest contemporary rom-coms that I saw this year was 2 Days in Paris, starring the wonderful, the incomparable Julie Delpy. If you have seen the Before trilogy, so Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, Before Midnight, you will recognize Julie Delpy. And it also, it has the same wit of those movies. It has the same, love for conversation and love for philosophical discussions. And so if you like those movies, you have to watch 2 Days in Paris. It is so, so fun, so funny. I feel like I'm just using the same words. I will get a thesaurus tomorrow. Just let me have those words now. No one does sarcasm. No one does passive aggressiveness like Julie Delpy. She's just a queen. So 2 Days in Paris, I should actually tell you guys what this is about. So 2 Days in Paris is about a couple who are sort of in a bit of a precarious point in their relationship, and I think they're like traveling Europe, and he's American, she's Parisian, and they are spending, you guessed it, 2 days in Paris with her family. She's introducing her boyfriend to her family, and they keep running into all her ex-boyfriends, and he's just becoming more and more suspicious, more and more paranoid, more and more jealous, and it's just a romp. It's a real fun ride.
Non, je dis ça parce que franchement, t'es pas mal. Blonde comme ça, on dirait une actrice américaine. La meuf du mec dans Liaison Fatale, Douglas.
Saying I look like Catherine Zeta-Jones. Catherine Zeta-Jones?
Voilà. Eh ben oui.
Great, we have a blind cab driver.
No, I know.
Speaking of Paris, let's talk about La Haine. I don't know if I've pronounced that properly. La Haine. La Haine. Lane. I'm just going to go with La Haine. I'm not French. Quite a different film from 2 Days in Paris. Definitely not a rom-com. Definitely not a comedy. Definitely not a romance. This movie is doing two things. It's at once a hangout film. You're following a bunch of French dudes, teenagers, guys in their 20s maybe, just hang out in Paris. It takes place the day after a riot, and they're waiting for the medical results of their friend who was injured by a policeman. So they're sort of spending this day just filling time, just waiting for these results, just walking around Paris, getting up to all sorts of things. Yeah, at once it's this hangout film, but then there's also this like sinister undercurrent of police brutality under the surface that's going on. It's beautifully shot in black and white, and it says a lot about not only the culture of the 90s and the police violence of the 20th century, but it's also extremely topical. Things have not changed, guys. The next film is 8th Grade. Now, this is for those of you that love coming-of-age films. This film perfectly encapsulates the awkwardness and insecurities that come with being a teenage girl, particularly a teenage girl going through puberty. 13-year-old Kayla endures the tidal wave of contemporary suburban adolescence as she makes her way through the last week of middle school, the end of her thus far disastrous 8th grade year, before she begins high school. This is Bo Burnham's directorial debut, and this film is also a love letter to being yourself and the importance of not contorting yourself to meet other people's needs and expectations. So yeah, if you want to recreate the high school experience, if you want to go back to what it felt like to be a 13-year-old, awkward, anxious-ridden human being, watch 8th Grade. Okay, the next film made me fuggily cry so hard that I couldn't get off the couch. I'm still scooping my heart up off the floor. I had to get a new rug. That is how much this next film destroyed me. If someone had told me that a film starring Nicolas Cage, who goes on a quest to find his kidnapped pig, would be one of the saddest films I've ever seen in my life, I wouldn't have believed them. I would have told them to get out of here. Pig is the film that I am, of course, talking about. And I underestimated this film so hard. When I read the synopsis of this film, I just thought it was going to be like this dumb John Wick spin-off, this film trying to capitalize on the success of John Wick. But it is so not what I expected, and I'm so thankful for that. I don't really want to say more about the plot. I just want you to go in have a tissue box ready. This film is devastating. This is by far my favorite Nick Cage performance. He's so understated in this. If he was any more understated, he'd be sleepwalking. I've seen another few sort of quiet Nicolas Cage performances over the past couple of years, and I've realized that's my favorite iteration. Speaking of understated performances from actors that are known to deliver quite like big OTT performances, Joaquin Phoenix in Come On, Come On, just another total heartbreaker. This movie is about a journalist who sort of has to indefinitely take care of his nephew after his sister leaves her son in his care when she has to deal with a family emergency. It's a film essentially about parenthood and the challenges and rewards that come with it. I'm not even a parent, and this film hit me so hard, so I can't even imagine watching it from the perspective of a parent who knows exactly what these characters are going through. I watched a lot of black and white classics last year, and I know I keep saying like, I saw this was my favorite film, and this is one of my favorite films, and this is my favorite script. But now that I think about it, I think my favorite black and white film that I saw last year, and potentially one of my favorites of all time now, is All About Eve, Bette Davis. I wrote in my Letterboxd review that this is the katana sword of scripts. If this script was any sharper, I would have hurt myself. This film is about an aspiring wannabe actress called Eve, who inserts herself into the life of a very famous actress called Margot Channing, played by the incomparable Bette Davis. And Eve is so desperate to have what Margot has that she inserts herself in her life. She starts emulating her. She starts manipulating the people around Margot. She basically wants what Margot has, and she will do anything she can to get that same level of fame. On the surface, this film might sound a little petty, but it's full of such wonderful, rich character studies and themes that are so relatable to all of us. It's a movie about fame. It's a movie about ambition. It's a movie about the price of fame and ambition and greed. It's a movie about women. It's a movie about female relationships, power dynamics, aging, and it's just grounded in these incredible moments of dialogue. I'm going to read you guys some of my favorite lines because it's just, I mean, like I said, the old timers, they knew how to write a script. Funny business, a woman's career. The things you drop on your way up the ladder so you can move faster. You forget you'll need them again when you get back to being a woman. That's one career all females have in common, whether we like it or not, being a woman. Another line. So many people know me. I wish I did. I wish someone would tell me about me. All About Eve, there's a reason that this movie is considered a masterpiece. Another director that I explored their work for the first time in 2024 was the incredible and extremely notable Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa. Akira Kurosawa was one of the most prolific filmmakers in the 20th century. He made something like 40 films in the space of 30 years. Or maybe it was the other way around. He made like 30 films in the space of 40 years. Either way, dude knows how to churn them out. But they're all quality as well. Akira Kurosawa was inspired by a lot of Western stories, a lot of Western authors and playwrights. One particular person he was very inspired by was William Shakespeare. And the film that I'm going to talk about now, Run, is a sort of a loose reimagining of Shakespeare's King Lear. Run is this historical epic film set in like 16th century feudal Japan, and it's about a warlord who wants to retire and he sort of makes the mistake of dividing his kingdom up between his three sons who neither love each other or trust one another, and it just kind of all becomes carnage and goes into chaos, and there's this big civil war, you know, lots of people are murdered by swords, and it's like watching like a 3-hour-long Game of Thrones episode. It's just epic. So imagine like Succession, but with like a lot of killing, a lot of swords, and like a lot of amazing costumes. It's also got this incredible, vibrant color palette that Kurosawa was really famous for. If you enjoy watching people in rooms have like really intense conversations, so yeah, if you like shows like Succession and Game of Thrones, this film will absolutely be your palate. Hi guys, it's tomorrow. So what had happened was I finished filming the video yesterday and then I went to edit it, and I noticed that for the last 20 minutes of the edit, I had a massive booger in my nose the whole time. And I wish you guys had said something. It was really embarrassing. It was just too distracting, and I have to redo the last part of the video. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to talk about the last 8 films again. Here we go. Climax. Watching Climax feels like the experience of watching anxiety on screen. For some reason, I'm really attracted to films about anxiety, films that portray anxiety, and perhaps it's because I have anxiety, and the movies that I enjoy, the characters are always experiencing a level of anxiety that is so beyond mine. So perhaps it's like a relief for me to watch movies like that, because no matter how bad my anxiety is, it's nowhere near what these characters experience. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Climax, it's a French horror film, and it's about a group of dancers who are rehearsing for some big show in like some abandoned warehouse. And after they finish rehearsing, somebody spikes the sangria, and they all drink the sangria, and then the rest of the movie is like them descending into madness and chaos, and you're just watching like this nightmare drug trip unfold before your eyes. If you've been to my house, there's a very good chance that I've shown you the opening dance sequence in Climax, because it's not only my favourite scene from the film, it's one of my favourite things that you can find on YouTube. After you watch this video, I encourage you, go on YouTube and type in Climax opening dance sequence, and it will change your life. What I always find interesting is that when I'm showing someone that scene from the movie that has no context, that gives nothing away about what the rest of the film entails, I tell people that it's from a horror movie, and they're so surprised because the dance sequence that they're watching is so euphoric, it's so full of joy, and they're so surprised that that scene is in the same movie as a horror film. And the film kind of works that way. It's very disarming. When the horror actually comes, it's so surprising and so fascinating. It feels like you're watching someone's worst drug trip in real time. You know, Climax is a great horror film, but it's also a great dance movie. A lot of the people in the film aren't actually actors, they're professional dancers. So that adds this like layer of realism to the film. You feel like you're watching real people descend into madness and chaos and paranoia. And it's got this really interesting whodunit plot device at the core of it, because the whole time you're trying to figure out who actually spiked the sangria. If you're curious about French extreme cinema and French horror, I feel like Climax could be a really good gateway drug for you. But if you're someone who gets a little bit seasick with like a lot of crazy camera movements, like upside down cinematography or like flashing lights, maybe take some preventative Panadol before you pop this one in.
I don't have a headache. I'm just preparing.
Next up, Rye Lane. Now, if you're someone who loves rom-coms, but you're sick of the same terrible stuff that Netflix keeps churning out on its platform, Rye Lane will definitely be a breath of fresh air for you. It's this meet-cute story about these two South Londoners who are just coming off like really bad toxic relationships, and they meet and they spend 24 hours just exploring the city and getting up to all sorts of mischief and just having these really interesting conversations. Again, if you like the Before trilogy, this has a very similar vibe. This is a great date night movie. It's also a really good movie to show someone that's like a little bit jaded about rom-com films, because it's so unique and it's such a fresh take in the genre. All right, we're going to get melancholy for a second. I want to talk about Aftersun. This is for the sad boys and girls. This movie features an incredible performance from the internet's favourite sad boy, Paul Mescal. This is about a woman who's reflecting on a holiday that she spent with her dad when she was much younger. She's watching these home videos that her and her father took while they were on vacation. It's very dreamy. It's like a perfect movie to watch on like a lazy Sunday when you're feeling a little bit sleepy, because it kind of works like a visual lullaby. It's not really for the plot, boys and girls. It's more about vibes. It's more about character. It's like a slice of life film. You're just purely stuck in these quiet moments of a father and daughter's relationship. It's also incredibly sad, so make sure you have like plenty of tissues around you. I won't spoil what Paul Mescal's character is going through, but he's going through something extremely heavy. And he does it with he experiences it quietly, what he's going through, this pain. He does it with such dignity, and it's really devastating to watch. This is a really profound meditation on father-daughter relationships and memory and nostalgia and mental illness. But yeah, get those tissues. Speaking of melancholy films, let's just keep going. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. This is one of the most charming films I've ever seen. This is from A24, and it feels like you're watching an A24 Pixar film. If you're someone that doesn't cry in films, wait. Just wait, because I guarantee this will make you cry. I guarantee that this would make even like the most heinous sociopath shed many a tear. This is a really beautiful documentary about a sentient shell and his grandmother who are trying to find their community, their family again, after a devastating incident has separated them. And you're watching the film through the eyes of a documentarian, someone who finds Marcel while he's staying at an Airbnb and is so touched by his story that he wants to help him find his family. So that's the documentary that you're watching. If I say anything more about this plot, I'm just going to liquefy. It's so beautiful. It's a coming of age story. It's about found family. It's about finding your community. It's about trying to figure out who you are without your community. It's just, it gets you. It really gets you. If this film has haters, I don't exist. Like, I cannot imagine anyone watching this film and not falling in love with it. Guys, it's time. It's time to talk about that film. It's time to talk about the film that you've been waiting for, the film that I hinted at the beginning of this video, that I know you've been waiting this whole time for me to talk about. Let's talk about some cannibal romance. Luca Guadagnino. Luca. My favorite director working today. He knows how to make a banger. He knows how to make a #1 hit. Suspiria, Call Me By Your Name, Challenges, Bones and All. So Bones and All would actually make a really good double feature with Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. Yes, I'm so good at that. It would make a really great feature with that movie because it's also about a young woman who has to do something, who has to feed, but she doesn't really want to. Bones and All is about a young woman who has a penchant for eating people. So she's abandoned pretty early on in the film by her father because he can't deal with who she is and what she is. And so she goes on this epic quest to try and find her mother. And along the way, she meets Timothée Chalamet, who, spoiler alert, also has a dark secret of his own. This film is grounded in a really romantic, beautiful, all-consuming romance. Timothée Chalamet is really endearing as a cannibal, which is something I never thought I would say. Like, I never thought I would use the words cannibalism and endearing in the same breath, but here we are. Anyway, this movie is really lovely, which I understand is a weird thing to say about a movie about cannibalism, but it's not really about cannibalism. You know what I mean? It's about finding yourself and finding others like you and finding a community and not feeling like you're the only person in the world and not feeling lonely anymore, which are all, you know, universal human desires that we can relate to, right? Maybe not the cannibalism, but we can relate to the other stuff. Luca has this really talented way of making the act of eating erotic. And I'm not, like, whether it's peaches or churros or, look, I'm not making a case that that Bones and All is, that cannibalism is erotic, but it's not erotic, you know what I mean? Like, he has a way of making it not erotic, which he's the only person that can really do that, I think. Moving along, we have Roman Holiday. Now, I discovered Miss Audrey Hepburn last year, which I realize is a very strange thing to say in 2024 because she's such a famous person. Obviously, I knew who she was, but I'd never actually watched any of her films before. So I watched Roman Holiday, I watched Charade, and I watched Funny Face. But Roman Holiday was by far my favorite. It's the most romantic of all of the ones I've seen, and it's also the most tragic. I feel like people who haven't seen Roman Holiday, and I know I can say this because I used to be that person before I saw it, we had a certain idea of what this movie was. It was, you know, held up in the canon of rom-coms, in classic rom-com cinema. So we thought it was going to be like a textbook rom-com. I thought it was going to be super cliched, but it's not. It doesn't go where you think it's going to go. It's really original, and I think it was very subversive for the time that it came out. So Roman Holiday is about a European princess played by Audrey Hepburn who hates being a princess. She hates all the customs that come with it, the politeness, the stuffiness, the scheduling that comes with it. And she just wants to be a regular girl, you know, for a bit. And so one night she sort of like climbs out a window and sort of frolics in Rome and gets up to all sorts of mischief. And she meets a gentleman and he, you know, takes her around and they have adventures together. And then, you know, things go from there. But yeah, it's a really, really lovely movie. I watched this when I was a little bit down and it really, really lifted my mood. So if you're wanting to watch a classic rom-com that doesn't feel cliche, that doesn't feel like a textbook rom-com, give Roman Holiday a go. It's really, really fun. Okay, the next movie is probably the most depressing film on this list, probably the most harrowing film on this list, but it's got a very important story, so I do recommend it. It's called On Sundays, and it is Denis Villeneuve's last French film before he started making movies for Hollywood and started making English language films. This is a film that I don't want to spoil. It's one of those movies that you should go into blind. So without spoiling the plot of this film, all I will say is that it starts with two twins going to read their mother's will, and their mother has left in her will a final plea, a final wish that she wants them to do for her. And that wish of the mother's sends them on a quest. And that's what the film is about. And I was gooped, gagged, and destroyed by this movie. It is so sad. It goes in so many directions. There's a new plot twist every second. Honestly, this film has more twists and turns than the Severed Department in Severance. And the revelations that come to light are just so shocking. Okay, because I love you guys and because I care about your mental health, I'm going to end with a fun movie. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Now, if you saw Nosferatu, but you kind of wish that you'd seen the version that was like more over the top and more campy, this movie will scratch that itch for you. I had no idea until a couple of years ago that Francis Ford Coppola, the director of Apocalypse Now, the director of The Godfather Part 1 and Part 2, the director of Megalopolis. I didn't see it. I saw the reviews. I don't need to. Yeah, that director made Dracula in the early 90s with Winona Ryder and a terrible Keanu Reeves. I had no idea that this was his film. This film has become infamous for so many reasons, one of them being Keanu Reeves' appalling acting in this film, but it kind of makes the film work. Like, it kind of makes the film better because of it. It really works here because the film is so OTT. The film is so campy. So it really is, it feels on brand for this film.
I know where the bastard sleeps. I brought him there. To Carfax Abbey.
This is based on Bram Stoker's seminal text, Dracula, which I realize is a redundant thing to say because that's literally the title of the film, but maybe you didn't know that. This is such a horny film as well. It's so sexy. And like I said earlier with Apocalypse Now, Francis Ford Coppola has a way with practical effects where he can make them like just not age. Like, they just look so good. They look so much better than a lot of CGI that you see nowadays. There's this amazing shot in the movie where Dracula's face is like superimposed in the clouds and it's so ridiculous, but it just works and it's so fun to watch. This is a capital M movie. This is a blockbuster. This is a spectacle, and I had so much fun with it. It came out of nowhere. It completely surprised me. I was not expecting it to be good. I was not expecting it to hold up. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think it's a really great way to cap off this list. That's it. Those are the 25 films that I highly recommend you watch in 2025. I had so much fun talking to you guys about film. Let me know in the comments if you've seen any of these, which ones I'm right about, which ones I'm wrong about. Let me know if you end up going and watching any of these. Let me know your thoughts. Mum, as always, I love you. Thank you for watching. Guys, I'll see you all in the next video. Okay, bye.